Ryan Reynolds is absolutely losing it right now after realizing that Blake had genuine feelings for Justin Baldoni from the very start. And let's be honest, finding out your wife has been secretly crushing on another man for years? That's a brutal ego hit. But maybe, just maybe, Ryan needs to take a step back and ask himself why this even happened in the first place. Now, don't get me wrong, Blake isn't some innocent angel in all of this. She's made her fair share of questionable choices. But come on, is anyone really surprised that a woman trapped in what some might call a loveless or even suffocating marriage isn't exactly thriving? From the outside, Ryan and Blake seemed like Hollywood's golden couple, but behind closed doors, their issues went way beyond petty arguments over household chores. Because let's be real, living with a man who's been surrounded by speculation about his true interests? That's not exactly a fairy tale romance. And now, after 8 years of marriage, it's crystal clear that Blake and Baldoni's on-screen chemistry in It Ends With Us wasn't just acting. Their connection ran deep, far beyond what the script called for. What started as professional camaraderie quickly evolved into something much more intense, an emotional affair. While the media tiptoed around it at first, once their relationship came to light, it set off a chain reaction of drama, deceit, and of course a messy legal war. At first, everyone assumed it was just another behind-the-scenes Hollywood fling. But nope, this one had layers. We're talking betrayal, insecurity, and a scandal so big it practically wrote its own script. And if you think this is all just gossip, think again. In the documentary He Said, She Said, Blake Lively vs. Justin Baldoni, which aired Monday, intimacy coordinator Mia Schachter didn't hold back. She outright stated that Blake and Justin had a bond long before she accused him of sexual harassment, a claim that, of course, Baldoni strongly denies. Blake insisted that Baldoni crossed certain boundaries, but those who followed the case closely argue that this wasn't as black and white as it seemed. Because when you strip away the legal jargon and the PR spin, what's left? A woman who developed very real feelings for her co-star, feelings that caught both Baldoni and Ryan Reynolds completely off guard. And once the lawsuit was thrown into the mix, things got way messier than anyone could have predicted. But here's where things take an even wilder turn, because Ryan Reynolds? He wasn't just some innocent bystander in this chaos. No, he played a much bigger role than the headlines let on. While the media zeroed in on Blake's allegations and Baldoni's response, the real driving force behind this scandal? Ryan's deep-seated insecurities. The second Reynolds found out that Blake had emotionally latched onto Baldoni, his entire perfect family narrative started crumbling. And let's just say, he did not handle it well. What Blake saw as an innocent connection, Ryan saw as a full-blown betrayal. And instead of working things out privately like, say, a normal couple, he went into full crisis mode. Some even say his reaction was way over the top. 'Cause make no mistake, this lawsuit? It wasn't just about the harassment claims. Industry insiders believe the real motivation was Ryan's ego. The thought that his wife might have actually fallen for another man was too much for him to handle. And instead of dealing with his emotions like a rational adult, he did what any powerful Hollywood star with a bruised ego would do. He weaponized the legal system. Ryan wasn't fighting for justice or even the truth. He was fighting for control. He needed to send a message, not just to Baldoni but to Blake too. No one was going to ruin his carefully curated public image. And the way he's handled this entire situation? Well, it says everything about where his priorities really lie. Ryan Reynolds wasn't just trying to win a lawsuit. He was trying to maintain control over his wife and his meticulously crafted public image. The legal battle wasn't about justice. It was about punishing both Blake and Baldoni, as if erasing the emotional affair could somehow restore the balance of power in his marriage. But what's even more unsettling? Reynolds' obsession with control didn't stop in the courtroom. Behind the scenes, his actions have been just as manipulative. To the world, he's the doting, protective husband. But those who followed this saga closely know better. His possessiveness has been a constant strain on his marriage, and his need to dictate how Blake is perceived, both in the media and within their personal lives, has been more than a little disturbing. The fact that he's willing to gamble his career, his public image, and even his marriage just to maintain control over Blake? That speaks volumes about his deep-rooted insecurities. Now, don't get it twisted. Blake Lively is not some helpless victim in this mess. She made her own choices. But pinning the entire disaster on her would be unfair. Yes, she played a role in the emotional affair with Baldoni, but at the heart of this entire scandal? Reynolds' relentless need for control. Enter Candace Owens, never one to bite her tongue. Her take on the drama? Absolutely ruthless. Owens argues that the lawsuit surrounding Lively's emotional affair isn't what it appears to be. While many assume Blake took legal action to reclaim control of her own narrative, Owens insists that Ryan Reynolds is the true mastermind behind this entire ordeal. According to her, Reynolds' goal wasn't to protect Blake or their family, it was to feed his own ego. And his real target? Not his wife, but Baldoni. Owens paints a damning picture of Reynolds as a deeply insecure man, willing to ruin another person's career just to maintain his own dominance. And she doesn't stop there. Owens claims Reynolds orchestrated the media circus surrounding the case, using powerful outlets like the New York Times to push his own version of events. That now infamous article condemning Baldoni? According to Owens, it was strategic. She alleges that Reynolds' PR team was behind the smear campaign, ensuring that Baldoni's reputation took a major hit, all while Reynolds played the part of the wronged husband. But here's where things get even darker. Owens suggests that Reynolds' motivations run deeper than just revenge. She believes this entire lawsuit stems from long-standing personal insecurities, ones he's never confronted. The legal battle, she argues, isn't really about Blake or the so-called harassment claims. It's about Reynolds masking his own vulnerabilities. His public persona, the charming, witty, effortlessly cool actor, might be what the world sees. But behind closed doors? Owens hints that he's a man desperately clinging to a life that's slipping out of his control. She even goes as far as suggesting that his actions aren't about love for Blake at all. Instead, they're about power, about keeping a grip on a marriage that's been unraveling for years. But the real question here? Why would Blake Lively, a successful actress with a seemingly perfect life, risk it all for Justin Baldoni, a co-star she barely knew before it ends with us? Some say the real answer lies in a pattern Blake Lively has followed for years, getting very emotionally attached to the men she works with. Think about it. Ben Affleck during The Town, Penn Badgley on Gossip Girl. Blake has a history of forming deep, almost obsessive connections with her co-stars. It's not just a one-time thing, it's a pattern woven throughout her entire career. So, her emotional affair with Justin Baldoni? It wasn't some shocking anomaly, it was just the next chapter in a well-documented habit. But what does make this situation different is the context. Because this time, she wasn't just a rising star falling for a coworker. She was married to Ryan Reynolds, Hollywood's golden family man, the guy whose entire brand is built on being the devoted husband and perfect dad. And yet, behind all those Instagram jokes and red carpet moments, Blake was supposedly stuck in a marriage that wasn't fulfilling her emotionally at all. According to some, Blake wasn't just unhappy, she was playing a role. A very specific role. That of a beard. Now, if you're unfamiliar, a beard in Hollywood is someone who helps maintain a certain public image, essentially a cover for a partner who might be exploring personal desires that don't align with the persona they've carefully crafted. The theory that Blake was Ryan's beard? Not exactly new, but it's gaining a lot more traction now, especially in light of her relationship with Baldoni. Because if you look closely, something has always felt a little off about Blake and Ryan's marriage. Sure, they appeared perfect, always arm in arm at events, always ready with a snappy joke. But that was part of the performance. Behind the scenes, insiders whisper that Blake felt more like a Hollywood prop than a partner. She was the picture-perfect wife, the supportive award show date, the woman who helped complete Ryan's illusion of the ultimate family man. But with Baldoni, it was different. He didn't see her as a brand. He saw her. For the first time in years, someone recognized Blake as more than just Ryan Reynolds' wife. And that was a problem. Because Ryan? He's obsessed with control. And when he realized that his wife had formed a deep emotional bond with another man, he didn't handle it well. Instead of addressing the cracks in their marriage privately, he went on the attack, hard. That's why the lawsuit, the media spin, and the entire smear campaign against Baldoni weren't just about defending Blake. They were about Ryan regaining power. His entire identity is wrapped up in his picture-perfect life, and the idea that Blake had found something real outside of it? Unacceptable. The second he felt his grip slipping, he pulled every string he had to shut it down, hard. But here's where things get even more interesting. Because if we're going to talk about Ryan's emotional connections, there's one name that keeps popping up: Hugh Jackman. On the surface, Reynolds and Jackman's relationship has always been sold as playful and brotherly, a long-running Hollywood bromance that fans love. But take a closer look and you start to see a much more complicated picture. 'Cause while Ryan is usually icy when discussing his own wife, his words about Hugh, they're different. We're not just talking about standard friendly banter. There's genuine warmth, deep admiration, and even a level of affection that seems to go way beyond typical friendship. Reynolds has repeatedly gushed about Jackman, calling him one of the kindest, most incredible people he's ever met. But it's not just polite compliments. It's the way he talks about him, the tone, the emotion. It's palpable. And that contrast? Hard to ignore. 'Cause while Reynolds can go on and on about how much Jackman means to him, his public remarks about Blake have always been distant, cold, almost obligatory. So the real question isn't just about Blake and Baldoni. It's about whether Ryan's own emotional ties have played a role in this mess too. The way Ryan Reynolds talks about Hugh Jackman versus how he talks about his own wife has sparked more than a few raised eyebrows. Over the years, he and Jackman have exchanged plenty of intimate jokes, with Reynolds even referring to their connection as a bromance, but some think there's more to it than just playful banter. Their interactions often carry a flirtatious energy, leaving many wondering if their relationship runs deeper than either of them lets on. But here's where things get really interesting. The public's growing curiosity about Reynolds' sexuality isn't just because of his interactions with Jackman, it's also about how he treats Blake Lively. For a man who built his entire brand on being the perfect husband and family man, his public demeanor toward Lively can be shockingly cold. While Reynolds' relationship with Jackman is brimming with warmth, genuine admiration, and a sense of ease, his dynamic with Blake often seems detached. There's a stiffness to how he talks about her, a formality that feels off, especially compared to the open affection he showers on Jackman. This contrast has fueled speculation that Reynolds might be struggling with something bigger, a personal conflict that goes beyond just his marriage to Lively. And that could explain why he's reacted so intensely to her emotional entanglement with Justin Baldoni. Because let's be honest, Reynolds isn't just fighting a man. He's fighting for control over a narrative. His carefully constructed image relies on the idea that he's the ultimate family man, the devoted husband, the guy every woman dreams of being with. The cracks in his marriage really start to show. If people start asking the wrong questions, then his entire persona is at risk. And when it became clear that Blake had found emotional intimacy elsewhere, his response wasn't about saving their relationship. It was about shutting it down before the public saw the full picture. But Blake's role in this drama? It's not as straightforward as some might think. While many paint her as an innocent victim caught in the chaos of her husband's insecurities, some, including Candace Owens, believe she's far more complicit than people realize. According to Owens, this isn't just a story of a wife being manipulated by her controlling husband. Blake's emotional connection to Baldoni didn't just happen, it was something she actively chose to nurture. Over the course of filming It Ends With Us, their bond deepened, and by the time it became undeniable, Blake was fully invested. For her, this wasn't just infidelity. It was about escaping. Reynolds may have seen it as betrayal, but for Blake, Baldoni represented something Reynolds never did: real emotional connection. He didn't see her as an accessory to a Hollywood power couple. He saw her. And for someone who spent years playing the role of the perfect wife, mother, and A-list actress, that kind of validation is powerful. But here's where it gets complicated. Publicly, Blake is still playing the devoted wife, seemingly trying to restore her marriage's picture-perfect image. Yet behind the scenes, the depth of her emotional involvement with Baldoni tells a very different story. She's not just a passive figure caught in the crossfire of her husband's legal war, she's an active player in the emotional battlefield. The real question is, who's betraying who? Is Blake the devoted wife trying to fix a broken marriage? Or is she a woman who spent years pretending to be happy, only to find herself trapped in the very image she helped create? Here's your rewritten version, keeping the scandalous and engaging tone while expanding the word count slightly to fit your preferred range. Blake Lively's connection to Justin Baldoni has become more than just another Hollywood affair. It's a turning point that overshadows Ryan Reynolds' accusations of harassment. In the legal and media war that followed, the relationship was framed as an act of rebellion against Reynolds' suffocating control. But make no mistake, Blake wasn't just reacting to the chaos around her. This was a deliberate choice, born out of deep emotional dissatisfaction. And that betrayal didn't just add fuel to the fire, it set the entire house ablaze. So now you know why it was Baldoni she gravitated toward. But if you think that's the full story, hit the comments with your take. Rather than treating this as a legitimate case of harassment, Reynolds used the legal battle as a warning shot to both Baldoni and Lively. He wasn't just trying to win in court, he was making it clear that no one threatens the carefully constructed perfection of his life. The way he's handled this entire mess suggests that truth and justice were never his priorities. His real goal? Maintaining a tight grip on his wife and the pristine image he spent years curating. The lawsuit became his weapon, a way to punish both Blake and Baldoni, as if erasing the emotional affair could somehow restore the power dynamic in his marriage. And here's where it gets even darker. Reynolds' need for control didn't stop in the courtroom. In the public eye, he's been painted as the devoted, protective husband. But behind closed doors, his possessiveness has been a relentless strain on their relationship. He doesn't just want to control Blake, he wants to control how the world sees her. His obsession with shaping her public persona, dictating the narrative both inside and outside of their marriage, is nothing short of unsettling. And the fact that he's willing to risk everything, his career, his reputation, even his marriage, just to maintain that grip, that speaks volumes about his insecurities. Now, don't get it twisted. Blake isn't some innocent bystander in all of this. But to place the blame solely on her? That would be a massive oversimplification. Yes, she made choices that contributed to this chaos, but the heart of this entire ordeal lies in Reynolds' need for control and manipulation. And of course, Candace Owens had plenty to say about the drama. She didn't hold back when analyzing the tangled mess between Blake, Ryan, and Justin, and her take? It's as explosive as you'd expect. Owens argues that this lawsuit isn't what it seems. While many believe Lively is using it to reclaim control of her own story, Owens insists that Reynolds is the real mastermind behind the entire ordeal. According to Owens, Reynolds' motives have nothing to do with protecting his family and everything to do with feeding his own ego. And here's the kicker. She claims Blake Lively isn't even the main target of this lawsuit. That title belongs to Justin Baldoni. Owens believes Reynolds is playing the long game, using every tool at his disposal to completely destroy Baldoni's career. She paints a picture of Ryan as a man consumed by insecurity, willing to manipulate the media, the legal system, and public opinion just to maintain his spotless image, even if it means taking down others in the process. And let's talk about that media frenzy. Owens alleges that Reynolds personally orchestrated much of the smear campaign against Baldoni, leveraging powerful outlets like the New York Times to push his version of events. And that Times article? The one that criticized Baldoni and conveniently painted Reynolds as the wronged husband? According to Owens, that wasn't just some organic piece of journalism, it was a calculated PR move, with Reynolds' team pulling the strings behind the scenes. But it doesn't stop there. Owens suggests that Reynolds' motivations stretch far beyond the immediate legal battle. This isn't just about salvaging his marriage or protecting his image, it's about making sure Baldoni never recovers. The calculated media manipulation, the lawsuit, the carefully spun narratives, it all points to one thing: Ryan Reynolds isn't just trying to win. He's trying to eliminate the competition. Here's your rewritten version, keeping the tone engaging and scandalous while slightly expanding the word count to fit your range. Candace Owens doesn't just stop at calling out Ryan Reynolds' alleged manipulation, she digs deeper into the root of his actions. She argues that everything he's done stems from deep-seated emotional insecurity, unresolved issues from his past that he's never truly confronted. In her view, the lawsuit isn't about protecting Blake or clearing her name. It's a smokescreen, a way for Reynolds to cover up his own vulnerabilities while keeping control over the life he feels slipping away. Public sees Reynolds as the charming, self-deprecating actor with a razor-sharp wit, but according to Owens, that persona is just that, an act. Behind closed doors, she suggests, there's a man terrified of losing control, not just of his wife, but of the carefully curated image he's spent years building. And that leads to the real question: why would Blake Lively, an accomplished actress, a woman who seemingly had it all, risk everything for Justin Baldoni, a co-star she barely knew before it ends with us? Well, if you look at Blake's romantic history, the answer isn't as shocking as it seems. Observers point out a clear pattern in her past. She has a habit of forming intense emotional attachments to the men she works with. From her rumored connection with Ben Affleck on the set of The Town to her highly publicized relationship with Penn Badgley during Gossip Girl, Blake has consistently found herself drawn to her co-stars. This isn't a random occurrence. It's a recurring theme in her life, one that suggests her emotional connections are deeply intertwined with her professional relationships. So, Blake's bond with Baldoni? It wasn't some once-in-a-lifetime deviation. It was just the latest chapter in a well-established pattern. But what makes this situation different is the context. This time, she was married to Ryan Reynolds, a man whose public image as the perfect husband and father was supposedly unshakable. And yet, behind the scenes, sources suggest she was trapped in a marriage that failed to meet her emotional needs. And then there's the theory that's been whispered about in certain circles for years, that Blake wasn't just Reynolds' wife, she was his beard. A woman positioned to create the illusion of a flawless, picture-perfect marriage while her husband wrestled with his own personal desires. The idea that Blake was used as a PR tool to maintain Reynolds' pristine reputation isn't new, but it gains even more traction when you examine the dynamics of their relationship. Despite their public appearances, something about their marriage has always felt off. While Blake played the role of the supportive wife, dutifully standing by Reynolds at award shows and media events, insiders claim her relationship with Baldoni wasn't just about seeking emotional support. It was a response to living in a marriage that may have been more about optics than true intimacy. Public saw Blake and Ryan as Hollywood's golden couple, but behind the scenes, she was allegedly living a reality where her feelings and desires took a back seat to the image she was expected to uphold. And when Baldoni came into the picture, he saw something in her that Reynolds never did. He didn't see Blake Lively, the Hollywood star. He saw Blake, the woman. And that terrified Ryan Reynolds. 'Cause for the first time, his grip on the narrative was slipping. His response? Retaliation. The lawsuit. The media manipulation. Character assassination of Baldoni. It wasn't about defending Blake's honor. It was about restoring Reynolds' control over a situation he no longer understood. Blake's affair wasn't just a scandalous Hollywood fling. It was a symptom of a marriage that, behind the cameras, may have never been what it appeared to be. And this brings us to another interesting piece of the puzzle: Reynolds' long-standing relationship with Hugh Jackman. On the surface, their bond has always been framed as playful, a bromance built on years of friendly banter. But when you take a closer look, the dynamics between them start to raise some eyebrows. While Reynolds has never shied away from gushing over Jackman, his remarks about him have always carried an intensity that seems different. We're not just talking about admiration or casual compliments. When Reynolds talks about Jackman, there's affection, a depth of warmth in his tone that stands in stark contrast to how he speaks about his own wife. It's one thing to joke around, but some of Reynolds' statements about Jackman have gone beyond what most men would say about a friend. He's called Jackman one of the greatest people in the world, a true gentleman, and has repeatedly expressed how much their friendship means to him. Now contrast that with how he talks about Blake. His comments about his wife tend to be reserved, detached, and sometimes even sarcastic. There's a noticeable lack of warmth in his public remarks about her, which only fuels speculation that his relationship with Jackman may run deeper than he lets on. Over the years, Reynolds and Jackman have shared countless intimate jokes, and while much of it has been brushed off as humor, their flirtatious undertones haven't gone unnoticed. Reynolds has even jokingly referred to Jackman as his true love and his better half, fueling speculation that their connection is far more layered than a simple friendship. The growing speculation around Ryan Reynolds' sexuality isn't just fueled by his flirtatious back and forth with Hugh Jackman, it's the stark contrast between how he treats Jackman and how he interacts with Blake Lively. In public, Reynolds maintains the persona of a devoted husband and father, but when it comes to Blake, his demeanor is often surprisingly cold, even dismissive. Meanwhile, his relationship with Jackman is the opposite, full of warmth, admiration, and a rare openness that he simply doesn't display with his wife. This contrast has led some to question whether Reynolds is struggling with deeper personal conflicts, ones that could be fueling the entire drama surrounding Lively and Justin Baldoni. Reynolds has spent years suppressing his true feelings. His legal battle with Baldoni might have less to do with protecting his marriage and more to do with protecting an image of himself that no longer holds up. His possessiveness over Lively, his relentless attacks on Baldoni. What if they aren't about love or betrayal, but about a desperate need to maintain control over the life he's carefully curated? Reynolds' public persona is, in part, a shield against his own uncertainties. Then his marriage to Blake Lively becomes less about romance and more about reinforcement. And in this scenario, Lively isn't just a wife. She's a piece in Reynolds' long-running strategy to keep up appearances. But here's where things get even more complicated. While many view Blake as the victim in this tangled mess, Candace Owens suggests she's far more complicit than people realize. In her view, Blake's emotional affair with Baldoni isn't just a reaction to Reynolds' behavior. It's an active, deliberate involvement that upends the simple narrative of a wife being manipulated by her controlling husband. Blake and Baldoni's connection didn't form overnight. Developed steadily throughout the filming of It Ends With Us, growing deeper with time until it became undeniable. And while Reynolds saw it as a betrayal for Blake, it was about something bigger. Finding someone who saw her, who valued her in ways she may have felt were missing in her marriage. That's why framing Blake as a helpless figure caught in the crossfire doesn't tell the full story. She wasn't just a passive player. She made choices that escalated the drama just as much as Reynolds did. Her affair wasn't just about straying from her marriage. It was a rebellion against a life she no longer felt connected to. And this is where Blake's public and private personas start to clash. To the world, she's the wife trying to mend her family's perfect image after a misstep. But behind the scenes, her relationship with Baldoni tells a different story. one of emotional longing, dissatisfaction, and a desire to break free from the narrative Reynolds had built for them. So when you strip away the legal battles and media spin, what are we really looking at? A Hollywood power couple unraveling in real time. A marriage that may never have been what it seemed. And a wife who, despite playing the victim in the public eye, was also making choices that reshaped the entire scandal. Blake's emotional affair with Baldoni wasn't just a scandalous fling, it was a statement. A challenge to the control Reynolds had over her life. A sign that she was done playing the part he needed her to play. And as the legal war rages on, the real question isn't just about what happens next, it's about whether the truth will ever fully come to light. So now that you know why Baldoni was the one she fell for, do you think that's the real reason? Drop your thoughts in the comments.